In this presentation, I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic concerning the ethical implications of using robots for sexual relationships. I'm going to look at some arguments about why people with love problems should not use robots for fulfilling their need of love. If you like it or not, this partner in a sexual relationship can possibly be a human robot in the future. Is it morally wrong or undesirable to have sex with a robot? First of all, let us take a look into the question to this new technology. Why are we concerned with creating a human robot? The German philosopher Martin Heidegger asked the question concerning technology and can give us new insights for the debate about this technological development. The next passage from his book could explain the urge to robotic development. If you like to close read the passage, please pause the video, but now we will just focus on the term enframing. With the term enframing, Heidegger basically means that human beings take the position in where they already created technology as something that could be used for their own purpose. This means that when we are creating human robots, the human species will be endangered by its own creation of technology. I think this gives us reasons why it is so important to look from the ethical perspective of the possible dangers of sex robots. But let's get back to the ethical considerations of having a sexual relationship with a robot. According to Frank and Nyholm, a human-robot relationship is only desirable if we extend legal and moral categories to human robots. This means that we should create such a robot that can give his or her consent to having a sexual relationship. Otherwise, it will mean that the legal community does not take a strong stance against non-consensual sex with human-like members of the legal community. There will rise a rape culture if we do exclude human robots from our own moral laws. But is it desirable to have sex with a robot when it does gives consent? Let's ask an expert of this topic about what she thinks. So then, considering this topic, what is the nature of consent actually?
So consent seems to have two aspects to it. First of all, consent transforms what seems to be impermissible actions to permissible ones. So it transforms something that was probably morally wrong into something that seems to be morally appropriate. And the way it does that is with this second aspect, where it allows someone to infringe upon your rights. So if you offer consent to something, you're allowing someone to infringe upon rights that you seem to have already. So there's two aspects. One, the infringements of your own rights, and secondly, how it normatively transforms something that was impermissible to something that is now permissible.
Is there anything we need to take into consideration when we talk about robot consent and sex?
Yeah, so we need to apply our consideration of what the nature of consent is to this more specific topic based on the two aspects of consent. So first of all, we can ask what rights robots actually have and whether or not the action that we're talking about, in this instance sexual consent, was actually impermissible in the first place. So we can really ask, do robots have the right to bodily integrity, which is what sexual consent seems to be violating. And if we think that they do have the right to bodily integrity, then they do have those rights, and we can think that the action is impermissible and that we need consent to have that sexual content. But if we don't think that they have that right, then we don't need their consent at all. So the debate would have to be based around this first aspect about the nature of consent and how it links to rights. Secondly, we would then need to ask, well, can robots actually consent in the first place? We would have to ask whether their consent is genuine and whether they have the ability to really transform what was impermissible to something that was permissible in the first place. And this debate really hinges around whether robots have something like autonomy or free will to be able to design their own permission to allow someone to violate what was seeming to be a right in the first place.
Sullins has another view about the ethical justification of sex robots, in where he sees a sex robot as an emotional being that needs to estimate the person's emotional state. A relationship with a human robot is only desirable when it has those emotional capacities, or when it imitates these capacities on a very high level intrinsically. But nowadays we only have developed such pre-programmed human robots like Roxy. The problem with those robots is that humans will be psychologically manipulated when the emotional capacities are imitated. But his counter-argument is that sex robots could be used as what he calls super love toys, and that we might experience a more perfect love through the use of those human robots. But a machine that is programmed to be a perfect match in loving its user would be extremely pleasing, but it also has some ethical implications. The use of human psychology to improve the lovotics, which means the conscious attempt to form a bond of love between a user and a robot, will be disrespectful to human agents, because we deceive human agents in that they believe the robot is sincerely loving them. And deceiving someone is, concerning the deontological ethical approach, always wrong. The last implication that I want to consider is the uncanniness of human robots. As Freud describes, there is an uncanny valley. Freud's definition is that the uncanny is as the class of frightening things that leads us back to what is known and familiar. He uses the word heimlich. When something looks familiar to us, but does not behave in a normal way, or if something looks unnatural to us, we get frightened of it. This is what can happen with advanced technological robots while using deep learning systems and human-like bodies. Nowadays, the human robots still look very mechanical, and they are still before this uncanny valley. But when robots will look almost like humans, and when they need to give consent just like humans, it could frighten us. Keeping in mind the ethical implications as described, I would rather encourage all people with love problems to start searching for other possibilities and develop ideas in how to solve love problems using humans instead of robots.